for fun, safe content for the children in your church? Welcome to Right Now Media, a digital library that includes more than 2,000 wholesome, educational, and entertaining videos for kids.
Giddy up, space cowboy. Time to rock this rocket.
The Kids Library has over 140 different shows that are both entertaining and biblical.
Today, we'll see the very interesting way Paul wraps up his letter.
With a bow tie, with polka dots.
These kids' episodes are great for family night, daily devotions, or everyday life. Through Right Now Media, you'll gain access to content like Superbook, Veggie Tales, The Slugs and Bugs Show, The Mr. Phil Show, and many more. Give your kids great content anytime, anywhere, on any device.
Whoa! That was a blast!
Good morning. Welcome to the Pulse WV Live. It is Wednesday, and it is the 10th day of February, and look who's across the screen with me.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey, yes,
right?
welcome back, you. Man, I tell you what, I thought the rapture took place.
It did.
I got left.
You didn't know?
No, well, I must have missed it.
Yeah, see, now we're back trying to save Israel. No, I'm just
So the 1,000-year reign?
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Boy, tell me if that wouldn't open a can of worms.
Right.
You want to talk about that today?
No, that's why I was joking.
That's crazy. Right Now Media, Jay, is absolutely, and I put it on the screen. I try to do that every day. Right Now Media, you can text the numbers 41411 to Right Now. It's all caps. There's a space in between Right Now, space. Don't write out the word space, but there's a space, and then the Pulse. And then you'll get a text back, and from there you can go in and open an account. There's over 20,000 videos. I mean, I do.
And to clarify, the opening of the account is just. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't hear me.
You can.
There we go.
Sound really good.
The opening of the account doesn't cost you anything.
No, absolutely.
The Pulse West Virginia covers all of the cost.
Absolutely, and it's an honor to do it because there's just such a need, especially for this time where people are just like hanging out at home.
Yes.
And but it's like there's really no excuse with technology the way it is for people to not get God's word. I mean, we have YouVersion, we have Right Now Media, we're on podcast, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, we're on YouTube as well as Facebook. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're on all the medias that everybody else is on, so we just want to be able to give people the Word of God.
Right, and even before COVID hit, we saw how effective, all of these online opportunities are to reach people. I had the opportunity to lead someone to salvation through Facebook Messenger, who my cousin in Texas shared our live broadcast on a Sunday morning. Some of her friends started sharing it, and it ended up in the hands of someone in California who found me on Facebook, reached out to me on Messenger, began talking to me about his situation, his issues, and we talked to that. I asked him if I could call him because I thought it would be better to talk over the phone. He said, no, I prefer this. And so we just continued most of the Sunday afternoon on Facebook Messenger, and he received Christ, and we've got him plugged into a church out there. And doing real good. So, yeah, I mean, it's amazing how God is using all of these things that often are used for bad.
Right.
How he's using them for good. He'll get the gospel out and to touch and change people's lives. And the main thing I'm going to say about Right Now Media, VeggieTales. I am a VeggieTale nut. And my church will tell you that probably the best sermon I ever preached was about Joshua and the Wall of Jericho, and I actually mocked a portion of the of that Josh and the Big Wall by VeggieTales. I actually mocked a portion of it during my sermon. I think that's what made it so good. Not that I made it good. That I was mocking VeggieTales.
Oh,
And I was doing the voices, the whole bit.
I'm sure you did awesome.
It was an amazing day.
That was so funny. You could chalk it up and say, "Man, it's been a good day."
Yes.
That's,
But no, I agree. I mean, our women's group, our men's group, our youth. Personally, at home, we've been using it. There are tons of opportunities on Right Now Media too.
So
To really get some good teaching.
So you were talking about the youth. Tell us about 356 tonight. Something really exciting.
356 relaunches is what we're calling it. It's a relaunch thanks to COVID. We haven't been meeting since probably February. And we did Zoom meetings for a while and everything. And, trying to keep teenagers engaged on Zoom was difficult. And so that faded after time. But, yes, we're relaunching 356 tonight. We'll be at the Garage in Taze Valley. That's a new place that you can rent for various functions. And they've got a big game room in it, everything else, and huge big screen TVs. And it's super cool. You walk into it and you're just like, this is a teen atmosphere, and it's just perfect. So we're excited. We know that some of the coaches of the sports teams and stuff at the Winfield schools and different things have been sharing it and getting the word out to their people, as well as our church and other people getting the word out. We're reaching people all the way in Charleston with it who have responded in some way or another to the Facebook messages so forth. So there's a lot of excitement built up, and what it really says to us is, there's a lot of kids looking for something.
Right.
And if we can give them something fun and mix Jesus in, then it's all worth the while to make that happen.
Are you going?
I will be there.
Can I go?
Yes, absolutely.
Because we did rehearsal last night.
Do you even have to ask?
Well,
No.
it's your campus. You could say no, you can't show. I want to go. I just want to see. I want to look and see because we have that. We have that building.
It's right by City National Bank here in Taze Valley, so it's really easy.
Is it in there where Little Caesars is and all that?
No, it's on the other corner. You've got City here, Little Caesars is here. It's on this corner.
And it's called the Garage.
It's called the Garage.
Who owns that?
J.P. Owens. He's actually a relative of Chris and Annie Beckett that
Really?
go to our church. And that's how we came up with it. Chris called me out of the blue, and he said, hey, I have an idea for 356. And so we went, we looked at it. Everything about it was awesome. JP's been amazing. He's got he's got a couple small businesses of his own in there in addition to the Garage. He does some amazing artwork and some different things like that. So he's just been amazing and super accommodating.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we're really happy.
I can't wait to see it because we have that empty building in Gasaway. So could you imagine, being able to do something like?
Oh, it'd be phenomenal.
Oh yeah. And it just help the kids,
Yeah.
And so, it's exciting. We're just believing God for great things. Well,
awesome.
Pastor Jay,
I will say this
so
too,
good
real
to
quick.
see you back here.
We're gonna start a new curriculum in our kids club this Sunday,
cool.
as well. So we're really excited about that. It's a video series that Haley and Brent in Florida are working on and doing, and we're looking to help them continue that process as part of the Pulse West Virginia, and it should be really exciting for our kids.
And Haley takes care of all of our announcements, and she does all our videos. She's working on a something for the Pulse WV Live in the morning too, and just real excited that God is leading some really cool people to the Pulse, and
a lot of talented people.
Yeah, it's to work with us.
The only talent God ever gave me was my mouth.
Was your mouth? Well, it works well.
Say.
It works well.
Thanks.
Well, there's some good people that are watching already today. We have Nellie Green out in Jackson County. We'll be out there on Friday to visit them. Alice is watching, as well as Les is watching. Sandy Gerard. Good morning, Sandy. She's watching up in Braxton, as well as Kathy Kushner is watching. Alice says, good morning. Looking forward to the program today. My sister Kathy's watching. Sam Wayne did a great job filling in for John Sandy on Sunday during Connect and did an awesome job. Good morning to you, Sam. Angie, good morning to you as well. And Adam Cavender is watching this morning. Hey, Adam.
Good morning.
One of the finest musicians, man. I tell you what.
I actually just sent my son to his workplace this morning.
Did you really?
That's where he works. He works for Adam.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. I didn't know that. And see, Adam and I go way, way back.
Yeah.
And we go.
I remember that soccer game.
Oh, Yeah. Do we have to talk about that soccer game? Which soccer game? Oh, that one.
That was the first time I met Adam.
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah.
I got you. And see, Adam and I went to church camp like back from kids.
Yeah.
And so there's a guy, Gateway Worship out in Texas.
Yes.
Adam and I went to church camp with Tommy Miller. And Tommy is the worship pastor there.
Oh,
And it's like, I don't know
cool.
if you remember when Kerry Jobes did the Revelation song, and it's like just studio, and just the Holy Spirit just all over it. And Tommy was standing right beside of her,
Cool.
and singing during the whole song. So Alan Smith from Chick-fil-A, who owns Chick-fil-A at the town center, he calls me, and he says, and Alan's a worship leader and a great guy.
Right, sure.
And he says, "You know Thomas Miller?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "He's a friend of yours on Facebook." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Tommy?" He said, "Thomas." I said, "No, that's Tommy." And he says, "How do you know him?" I said, "We grew up in church camp together." Really? Yeah. I mean, it was just like, yeah. It's Tommy, to us,
Very
But,
cool.
Yeah, but so I thought that was really cool. So, what you got going on?
Well, we've been preaching, and where I've been absent for about 3 weeks. Plus, let me say this real quick. I just want to thank everyone out there for the prayers. We were getting prayers and messages from people we didn't even know. So God was just moving in a mighty way. My wife and Isaac and I, all three in our household, ended up with COVID. We really didn't know it. I had an ear infection, and that was really my only symptom throughout. My wife and son had the sniffles, and then we were sitting on the couch, and she was eating something, I forget what, and she turned to me and said, "I can't taste this." And that's when we were like, oh, well, we better go get tested. And we tested, and we were positive. But I'm going to be honest with you, thankful for the hand of God
Amen.
on our lives and His mercy over us, because we felt fine. We did spring cleaning. We were outside in the snow.
Got a lot done.
We were quarantined to just the three of us in our home and on our property. So we weren't around anyone and did what we were supposed to do. But we felt amazing throughout the whole process. We didn't have, any of the problems or side effects or different things that a lot of people are experiencing. So I just want to say thanks for all the prayers out there, everyone that lifted us up, everyone that reached out, everyone that brought us food or groceries, even my buddy Jeff, who brought us L8. If you've never had L8 ginger ale, it is the best stuff on the face of the earth. And I love ginger ale, so it's perfect. And so just a lot of amazing people that were really good to us and lifted us up. So we're thankful.
Let me ask you something. Do you have a I don't want to get controversial, and we can if you want to, but do you have a different view on COVID now?
I really don't.
Not that you had one before.
Yeah, I did a lot of reading. I believe COVID-19 is real. And we can argue all day long, did it come from China? Did it do this? Did it do that? And whatever. I believe fully that COVID-19 is real. I believe fully that a lot of people have died because of COVID-19. I'm not, I have personal friends and family members who have died. I have an uncle, a cousin, and a really close friend who have all died as part of this. And so I believe in it, right? I'm not one of these people who outrun around that it's all made up and it's all make-believe and so forth. So let me say that, before anything that I say next could get twisted. What I've done, I did a lot of reading, and a lot of people will do Google searches, and they'll read the first 5 or 6 things that pop up. Well, being in social media marketing and different things like that in my day job, I know how those things work. Those people that you get on the first page of your searches pay to be in those positions. They pay money to be the first few things that you see when you do a Google search. If you go 2, 3, 4, 5 pages in to your search, that's when you really find some of the good information. So while I was off and amidst our spring cleaning and everything else, I had a lot of time to sit and read and find a lot of things online. And I'll just say this. If we have a COVID-19, Then we have a COVID 1, a COVID 2, a COVID 3, a COVID 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to 19. From my reading, the only thing, and this comes from an Asian medical institute, the only thing that 100% identifies COVID-19 only are the anal swabs that are now being used in Asia.
Oh, I heard about
and they
those.
originated out of China. That is the only test that can 100% only identify COVID-19. All of the other tests, including the nasal swabs that we do, and this is out there for people to read, so I'm not making it up, and it's easy to validate. All of the others can identify the COVID strand, but it can't necessarily guarantee that it's only COVID-19. You can have any of the other COVIDs. But because of the risk and the fears around COVID-19, if you test positive, period, then you're quarantined and then you go through all of those steps in case you do have COVID-19 so that you're not spreading that and, taking it to people, who could be more drastically affected by it. So personally, I believe I had one of the other strands of COVID. There's even other strands of COVID that have the sensation of loss of taste. COVID-19 is not the only one that has loss of taste and everything else. So I tend to believe I could be 100% wrong. And if you want to yell and scream at me online that I'm 100% wrong, I'm just going to look at you and be like, okay, because I'm not going to argue about it. I tend to believe we probably had another strand of COVID, but because we had a positive test, we did everything that we were supposed to do to, protect our friends, protect our families, protect the community, and all of those things. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
So, so when you think about, you look at Luke chapter 7 and you look at Luke 22, talks about pestilence, it talks about plagues, it talks about different things like that, talking about being in the end times. I mean, it's like that is plural, that the plagues listed as plural. So, would you think that COVID-19 is one of those plagues, and there will be other, and there will be others that will follow?
Of course, yeah, because like I said, I believe it's real. I believe people have died from it. I'm not going to sit here and be foolish enough and say that it's not real. Can we argue? Is it no different than the flu? Why don't we have more flu deaths like we usually do? Looking at the CDC numbers, we actually had less deaths in 2020 than we did in 2019.
From the flu?
No, just
Or
period.
just period.
Overall,
Yes.
total deaths in 2019 were more
I told my
than
son
2020 when we supposedly had a pandemic. So, I don't know that I fully believe we had a pandemic, but do we have a COVID-19 that can affect certain people in deadly ways? Absolutely. Right. I believe it 100%. But, I think there's a lot of information that's being learned every day about this. Science is always evolving. Right. So they're always learning more about it and everything else. And I think, I think a lot of people probably had COVID, but they didn't necessarily had COVID-19. And there was no official way to confirm one or the other. So I understand why they did what they did. Because these anal swabs are relatively new. They've only been out of testing, I think, like a month now. And that was overseas. So, that wasn't available, to the public until just recently.
So when you get in, so you had, you took a couple of weeks off and then back at it. And so you recommended people just to continue to live their life and just continue to.
Well, I think you have to
be careful.
I think you have to be smart according to your symptoms. Right. I had no symptoms. I had an ear infection, which hurt really bad for 2 or 3 days. Kind of hurt down into my throat. The doctor originally thought I had strep and dealt with that and didn't even think about COVID. Maybe thought about it, but didn't tell me to do anything about it. And then when none of that panned out, and it really just became my ear infection was the only thing I was dealing with. That's right about the time that my wife ended up with no taste. And we're like, well, let's go get tested. And we did. And that's when we're positive. We had no symptoms.
Did you take anything for it?
We took zinc and vitamin D.
Okay.
But we've been taking that throughout. I've been taking that since March. They don't take it as religiously as I do, but
Right.
I take the zinc and the vitamin D every day. Just because I'm a mild asthmatic and different things like that. So I was kind of in that risk group. So I thought, well, better safe than sorry. I'll increase the vitamin intake. And so I did. But, to answer your question, I would encourage people to follow the guidelines, most importantly, because if you do have it, you don't want to take it to an elderly family member or something like that where it could be deadly.
Sure.
So by all means, follow the guidelines, and respond according to your symptoms. If you have a cough, if you begin to develop things, into your chest and lungs and things like that, then respond to that. Don't force yourself through it just because I was able to, because it's going to react differently, with everyone. So I would encourage you seek medical advice and do what you're told to do.
One of the things, Jay, that we talked about is how we stand on God's word.
Yeah.
And that God's word actually worked on your all's behalf.
I believe it. I even had someone challenge me on that, because we've been standing on Psalm 91.
Yes.
We've been praying Psalm 91 over our churches, over our homes, over our families, over our workplaces, and so forth. And so I had someone, kind of a distant friend, kind of say, well, what are your feelings on Psalm 91 now and everything else? And I said, well, considering that I'm on my hands and knees, hand mopping a tile floor
Right.
in this moment when your message comes in, I feel pretty good about Psalm 91 because I feel that God's been merciful to me, and His hand of protection has been on me, and I'm fine. I feel great. I feel fine. I would be living my normal life right now, but I feel it's only responsible of me to follow the guidelines,
Right.
and so forth. So I still feel like I'm protected. I still feel like I'm covered, and I still feel like God has, done everything that He promised He would do for me, because I'm not laying, in a hospital bed somewhere. Now, we all have a time to die. It's appointed unto man a time to die,
Yes.
right? And so, a lot of people, well, why wasn't He as merciful, and why didn't He help my family member that died of it as well? Well, my response to that would be, look, God is sovereign.
Mm-hmm.
God is sovereign, and God knows why. We may never know why, but God knows why. And James Dobson wrote a book, When God Doesn't Make Sense. And I'll never forget something that he said in that book is, look, we pray for our family members to be healed, but if God healed everyone, we would never need heaven. And what we have to understand is sometimes God takes them before they experience the worst. Sometimes, if God allows them to stay, they'll go through worse than if He takes them. So what we have to understand is when God doesn't make sense to us, He is sovereign, and He always does what's best for His children in those situations. And so that's just something that's just teaching that I've always leaned on and believed in. And, while I would love to see all of my loved ones and my uncle and my cousin and my good friend, who died through this, while I would love to see them still alive, I trust God. And I trust in His sovereignty, in His decision-making as far as who lives and who dies, and who His grace is sufficient and mercy covers.
That's awesome. And that scripture that Jay was reading was Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27, and it says, "And it is appointed unto man once to die, but after that the judgment."
Right.
So it's true, because we're in a sinful world.
Yeah.
And where the body, see, I personally believe that before I believe the body was made to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
But because of Adam and
because
Eve.
of the sin.
Yeah,
I
because of
agree
the
with
sin.
that. Yep.
And so then, when you start living, you start dying. But I'm like you, I'll hold on to God's word until the last breath,
Yes.
of what's going on. So the plan, well said. And I think that is something that I could actually splice out of the show and share separately because I think it's insight. I think it's really insight because of somebody who's gone through it. And
well, it's funny now that I'm back to work and everything. Everyone kind of treats me like I have the plague. You know, like even you last week, you were like, "Let's not do the show together." And
I never said that, but I was thinking.
I know,
you know,
but it is funny because we've heard all of the fearful things.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I think it's important for someone like me to share my testimony because I felt great.
Right.
I felt fine. You know, I'm outside in the snow, running around, being a goofball.
Right.
I'm, you know, we did binge watch some. I did a lot of reading,
right,
and all of those things. So that time was good. I worked from home, which is 1,000% annoying, because you know at work I've got 3 big screens and I've got all this stuff going on, and everything else. At home I've got a laptop.
Oh,
so
gosh.
it literally takes me like twice as long to do the things I need to do. You know, so I lived my normal life other than the long work days at home, and I wasn't affected. And I think it's important to share that testimony, not to belittle those who didn't have that kind of experience.
Right.
I want to be clear about that. But I think all we've heard is fear, 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 fear.
Right.
And I think it's important that people know and people understand, look, it's not all fear.
Right.
God is still present in all of this, and God is still able to walk with us.
Because the media just kind of blows a lot of stuff out of whack a lot of times. And
well, and I think people too, you know, and you know, like my wife and I've kind of laughed, you know, at work this week, you know, it's almost like, you know,
that's funny.
It's like, oh, there's Jay, and you know, different things like that. But you know, and I think our conscience has been seared to think that way.
Right.
And, you know, I put a post out on social media. I said the hardest thing about pastoring during a pandemic is knowing who to hug, who to fist bump, who to shake hands.
Yeah.
And I forget, there was another one. And who to just wave at, you know,
right.
because everyone's reacting so differently to this. And, you know, I had a ton of people, you know, say, I'll take the hug, and everything else. And, you know, some people it's like, I'll just wave at you. And then I had a few friends jokingly jump in and say, why don't you just blow me a kiss? And so, you know, send them a gif about blowing them a kiss and whatnot. But I think we all are responding very differently based upon how much fear we allow to control us.
Sure.
And, you know, and then I did have someone question me. It's like, you're actually hugging people in the middle of this? And well, number one, no, I wasn't hugging anyone while I had it.
Right.
I followed the guidelines. I got a negative test, and you know, everything's back to normal after the negative test, and so forth. But you know, pre and now, sure, because some people need a hug.
Yeah.
Some people need a hug more than they need to worry about COVID. Some people are really struggling, and some people need to know that you're willing to put your arm around them and love them through whatever they're going through, and love them in the midst of this. And you know, I don't want to be that guy that had an opportunity to encourage someone to go one more day, and not do that, and they choose not to go one more day.
Wow.
I don't want to be that guy. And if you fault me for that, fine. You can shake your hand at me all day long. But
That's
you know,
awesome,
if someone needs that touch, and it's not a touch from me, it's a touch from above. And you know,
so
I want to help people in the place they are.
Do you think that it's the enemy that has worked through the COVID virus, the COVID-19 virus, that has secluded people to where the suicides are higher, marriages
absolutely.
are in a wreck, and all these things? Because I mean, it's like I don't know if you know. Well, sure you do. I mean, because you can't see somebody smile because they have a mask on,
Right.
and so, and then not only that, but those people that do need to hug, because see, God is a relational God.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we need to be in church. That's why we need to be, be in touch with each other. But God, He caused us to react to touch.
Yeah.
That's part of, to cry, to laugh. Yeah. Appropriate touch, yeah.
Right.
And so, when you think about that, God set that up. He set it up for us to have emotions.
Yeah.
Whoever said, that men shouldn't cry,
Yeah.
is one of the dumbest things because
Yeah, I say all the time, if I'm crying, you better pray I'm blessed, because I'm either blessed or I'm getting ready to put your head through a wall.
no, that's not good either. There is.
That's a joke.
I know, but that's so funny. But but when you think about that, it's like, yes, people need that. Here's some comments today. Alice said, she said, I feel that one reason Bill is still alive due to the prayers for him. Also, his wife prayed constantly and continued to praise during the really sick moments. Faith is the answer. Bill recently went to step down facility, and so she praises God for that. You know, Kathy Kister says that she agrees that God is sovereign. Good morning to Connie, who is John Sandy's sister, and Kathy. Good morning, Kathy. Glad that you're watching. And Billy Harper, good morning to you, and as well as Marty. Good morning, Marty. Glad that you're tuned in today.
Morning, everyone.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think, I've even heard stories of pastors, who have quit calling to check on, on their parishioners. Even parishioners that were going through this, and kind of just stepped away and disappeared through all of this. They're not having services. They're more in rural areas, so they're not having services, and they don't have online capabilities, so they're not doing anything, and these congregations are just kind of, out there alone. And so, I think the enemy's using this. I think the enemy's using this in a big way, and I think if we don't play our cards right as a church, then the enemy's going to win in a lot of situations and in a lot of circumstances. And I think we have to be diligent, and I think we have to carry the banner and carry it high.
Right.
And not be. I think we need to be smart. I think we can't be reckless.
Right.
It's like, we wear masks and we do all the things we're supposed to do in our services and whatnot. So I think, we'd be foolish if we didn't.
Right.
But beyond that, I think we need to make every effort, every step to still bring Jesus to people, to still hug the people that need hug and fist bump the people that need fist bump, and engage them and engage their lives, because that's what we're called to do as the church. Jesus wasn't supposed to touch the leper, was he?
Right.
But he did.
And I'm sure when people did.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And everything else. But, God is sovereign. Jesus was sovereign. He had authority over that, and he gave us authority over that.
Yes, he did.
And so, I think if we would choose to walk in what we've been given, then the fear and the craziness with all of this would not consume us so much.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Pastor Doug brought into one of his sermons this past few weeks isn't it amazing how far somebody with leprosy was supposed to stay away from a person who wasn't? 6 feet. 6 feet.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's
he brought that
incredible.
out. Yeah, I didn't think about that until then. But yeah, it's like people, they're like that. But I'm like you. It's like, yes, it exists, but yet, I disagree with what President Biden said before he was elected. He said, "Oh, it's going to be a long, dark winter." And look, I'm telling you, I'm proclaiming that 2021 is the best years of our lives. Yeah. Prosperity and for God to move, and for debt reduction and health. And I mean, I'm just standing on his word.
And that's what, if we choose to give in to fear,
yes,
then we will have a long, dark winter. We will.
I refuse.
But yeah, I refuse to live by fear. Yeah. And I've been told I was lucky and everything else. No, I'm blessed.
Amen.
And I'm highly favored.
Sure.
And I'm covered in mercy and grace.
Yes.
If I stop real quick, goodness and mercy are going to bump right into me.
That's
yeah. They're going to. You say that all the time, and I believe it.
Amen.
Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life.
Absolutely.
And if I stop real quick, they're going to bump into me because
so cool.
that is part of who I am.
Right.
And I choose to live in that authority and in that anointing and in that power.
Right.
And I refuse to live anywhere else.
Right.
And because if I do, then I'm going to be so influenced by this world and the things of this world that I will never capture the kingdom. I will never
That's so good.
capture the kingdom of God.
You know, what do you think about with the sermon series that you're on, with the plan that you've been on for a few weeks here? What do you think about how all this ties in? You know, with the way the election went, or the way with with COVID. How, I mean, God is not sitting in heaven, Jay, wringing his hands.
No. Well, it's funny. The other morning, I have my boys and some friends of ours and different things, like they play the Dungeon and Dragon game.
Right.
And if you're not familiar with that's a game where you've got made up characters, and you're fighting these great big monsters and things like that. I mean, it can be really evil for some, but they don't go that direction. But you're fighting these great big monsters and different things like that, and you win the game by rolling dice to see what happens next. And so in the middle of one of my messages the other day, I said, life is not a big Dungeon and Dragon game to God. Right. He's not sitting in heaven rolling dice to figure out what happens next. He is firmly in control, and what's happening and what's going on is only allowed by his authority.
That's
and we need to remember that and live with that assurance and that victory and walk in that. And so when I kind of came up with this idea of the plan, and in 2021, the plan. Right. It kind of goes back to that Marine ideology of me and everything else. You don't just storm into battle and everything else like that. I'll never forget, my senior drill instructor said something to us.
Turn your mic just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm moving around.
There you go.
Our senior drill instructor said something to us one evening during senior time. And for those of you who've been in the Marine Corps, you know what that is. And he said to us, never react to a situation. He said, because if you react, you're going to die, right? And I think life is a lot like that, right? We tend to react. We don't read. We don't study to show ourselves approved. We cherry pick scripture. We live in the day and age of cherry picking scriptures, that address where we are and confirm how we want to believe, right? But we don't take the fullness and the wholeness of God's word and allow the wholeness of God's word to develop how we're supposed to think, right? We already make up our own minds. We already make up our own opinions, and we say, okay, here's this scripture and this scripture and this scripture and that scripture to back up how I think. Well, that's not what God expects out of us. God expects us to take the whole word.
That's good.
And allow the whole word to develop how we think and how we react and how we respond to things. And so in that senior drill instructor, he said, don't react because you'll die. If you charge into something without first assessing it, you're going to die. He said, instead, assess your enemy, assess the scenario, assess the situation, which as scripturally, we would call that wisdom. Right?
Yes.
In Scripture, we would call that wisdom. We would call that allowing God's direction, allowing the anointing to move in our lives and take us in the direction we're supposed to go. So assess the situation and respond. Right?
Wow.
And I look back over my ministry, and early in my ministry, I dealt with a lot of stupid things. But in those things, there were a lot of times I reacted. And I didn't come from a source of wisdom. I didn't come from a place of wholeness in God's word. I came from what I knew and what I had been told, and so I reacted in the moment, and I probably missed, I probably made some bad decisions. I probably said some untimely things. It's not that I was wrong, but how I handled it was wrong. And so now, fast forward 30 years, I'm able to look at things and from a wholeness of God's word through years and years and years of study in God's word and topical studies and taking online classes because I feel like I'm not really grasping this like I should and allowing all of that to come together and make a composite development to my ministry. Then I'm able to listen well. Right? The Bible tells us to listen, right? And we can't do that if we're always running our mouth. And you know, sometimes people come to you and they're like, I've got a problem. I need your advice. And all they do is talk.
Right.
And literally, I've been in some of those scenarios, and there's probably some people out there listening who's laughing right now because everything else is like, whoa.
Yeah.
Stop talking.
Yep.
All right? You came to me for help.
Yeah.
Let me help you. Right? Because all you're doing is trying to vindicate why you're here.
Yeah.
All right? I understand why you're here. Let's fix it.
Mike
Right?
Mike Spangler from Poco Valley Bank, he used to do this. Time out.
Yeah.
He would say time out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm real good with just stop talking. Stop talking.
Yeah.
I don't do it mean. I don't do it. You know, I
Right.
don't do it. You know, everything else. But whoa.
Time
Whoa.
out.
And you know, Jesus did that.
Yeah.
You know, we see in Scripture where he's like, whoa, you know, or other people in Scripture, whoa,
Right.
you know, and everything, because he's basically saying, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, it's what he said. It's what he basically said to Peter. You know, Peter, far be it from thee, Lord. Whoa, you talk like Satan.
Yeah.
You know, you sound like Satan. You haven't grasped anything I've tried to teach you
Right.
here, and you're talking like the enemy.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
and
good, yeah.
you know, so when we bring that up, this idea of the plan, and we've talked about a lot of different things, and it all comes from Ephesians chapter 1, where it talks about spiritual blessings in heavenly places, right? And you know, God wants our blessings to be spiritual. Okay, He gives us homes, He gives us cars, He puts food on our table. Certainly, those are tangible blessings, right? And we should thank Him for those. We should acknowledge those, and we should, you know, and we should have a heart of thanksgiving for those, absolutely. But what I'm wanting to push us to, especially because of 2021, especially because of political unrest and because of pandemics and because of all of the uncertainty in the world, is I wanted to say to the church, whoa. Quit reacting.
Right.
Quit reacting. Quit freaking out. Quit running into this thing and losing yourself. Let's make a plan. And so we've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about, you know, the spiritual blessing of deliverance.
Yes.
You know, let's talk about deliverance. Let's talk about Paul and Silas in the pit. Let's talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. Let's talk about Daniel in the lion's den, where spiritual deliverance moved in their situation and moved in their life, not because, and in all of those situations, understand that Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had favor of the king.
True, yeah.
He wasn't happy about doing that to them.
Right.
Right? And so, you know, in this time of political unrest, we can behave ourselves in a favorable way.
Right.
Doesn't mean we have to do the things we don't believe in. Doesn't have to mean we sacrifice our spirituality, and it doesn't mean that we sacrifice our belief that abortion is murder and all of these different things. But we can behave ourselves in a way that is godly, and in a way that brings favor into our lives. Not only the favor of man, but also the favor of God. And God will deliver us in those situations and in those scenarios.
Jay,
Right?
Yes,
Go ahead.
there is, you know, when you think of the political unrest, and I woke up the day after the election, or not after the election, but after the inauguration, and I was excited, and let me tell you why. Not because I didn't want Joe Biden in, and I know that, but yet he's the man that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but one thing that I can say is that, and David Frampton has repeatedly told me this, and I believe it, and it just got in my spirit, that it's time for the church to be the church.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
Pastime.
Yes, a pastime.
Pastime.
And so what happens is that we have relied so much on Washington, D.C. to activate the agenda, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Republicans, blah, blah, blah. And the thing about it is, when in reality, you have Brian Miller, who is in Colombia, South America, who I'm going to do an interview with soon, who is rescuing people, women, from having abortions at the abortion clinic.
Right.
You know, not by shouting across the room at or the street at them, but loving them.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Years ago, I forget who it was. It was Right to Life was probably involved in some realm, but I want to say there was another organization involved. But if you remember, all the churches would go out, and it was Life Sunday or whatever.
Yeah.
And all the churches would go out and hold signs, abortion is murder. And then like every seventh sign, they asked for pastors to stand there and hold a sign, Jesus heals and forgives.
Yes.
Which is the right message.
Right.
But if I'm driving through there at 40 miles an hour, I'm going to see abortion is murder, 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 murder. Maybe I see Jesus heals and forgives. Maybe I don't.
Right.
I think it should have been the other way around. One sign, abortion is murder, and then 6 signs.
Wow.
That Jesus heals and forgives, and so forth. And I had just went with my church and participated in that, and came home because I thought I was doing the right thing. Come home only to hear a news story a few hours later that a girl had committed suicide because she had had multiple abortions, saw this and everything, and I guess she wrote a note or something about it. It was several, we're talking more than 20 years ago, and I do well to remember what I ate for breakfast, but and committed suicide. And the Lord really spoke to me, and he said, it's because you're not delivering my message.
Wow.
You're delivering man's message. Man's message is abortion is murder. God's message is Jesus heals and forgives.
Wow.
And I remember saying to myself right then, I will never participate in that again.
Wow.
Now, they have greatly restructured that. And it does have more of a grace and mercy tone to it than what it used to have, from my understanding. But I think you're 100% right. And I think what Brian is doing is at the heart of where the church is supposed to be. We're not meant to be politicians, and we're not meant to be, sounding brass.
Right.
Our job is to be the hands and feet of Jesus. You want to be sounding brass? Go blow your trumpet all you want.
Right.
Right. God is looking for people who will be His hands and feet.
That's
and
good.
and be the as you said, and as they said, be the church. Touch lives, change lives. Engage people, give people a hug who need a hug, and trust God to protect you in these times. Touch hearts, touch lives, touch the leper, for goodness sake,
Right.
and bring deliverance. Right. And so that was one of the weeks. It was talking about God's deliverance. We also talked about spiritual. I want to get to this past week's real quick.
Yeah.
And I know we've got several weeks that we missed. But one of the things that I think is important for us is spiritual joy. Understanding spiritual joy. Because a lot of us will seek out pleasure, and a lot of us will seek out fun, and a lot of us will seek out happiness on an earthly level. And I actually used from the book of Esther the story of Haman. And Haman was surrounded by all of his friends after he had come from the king's house in Esther's first dinner. And he's talking to all of his friends about, look what I have. I'm so full of joy because I've got a nice house. I've got nice clothes. I've got nice friends. I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. His joy came from things. His joy never came from inside. His joy never came from the presence of God in his life. His joy came from things. And we all know things can be taken away. We also know that Haman's joy was eventually taken away by his own doing, by trying to receive more of the things that brought him earthly joy.
Right.
Instead of pursuing the right things and the good things. And so I think, spiritual joy is so important to us, because if we base our happiness and if we base our mood on circumstantial things and things that can come and go every day of our lives, then our whole life is going to be this
emotional roller coaster.
An emotional roller coaster, perfectly said, and everything else. Well, that's not where God wants us. God is offering us out of heaven spiritual joy to where we abide in Him and He abide in us. And through that relationship, we have constant joy in our life. We have constant peace in our life. These are spiritual blessings and should absolutely be part of our plan. This past week, I talked about spiritual redemption. And I think it's so important today. And I know you're not on Facebook that much outside of the church stuff and everything else like that. And I used to be on it a lot more, and I've backed way off of it because it's just become so hateful. And, you know, I'm not even talking politics. I'm not even talking church stuff. You know, you make a comment on a sports page, you know, now, and you get attacked because people believe differently than you do about who the better quarterback is, or who the, you know, this or that and the other. Is it LeBron James? Is it Michael Jordan? Is it, you know, and people just become malicious in this stuff.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is stupid.
Right.
This is just,
It
this
really
is just
is.
heathen.
Yeah,
it
really
is just
is.
downright heathen.
Yeah.
And everything else. So I mean, you know, I don't even do nearly as much. I've pretty much unliked every page, everything other than church related stuff. And so other than friends, family, and church, I don't do a whole lot except for my coffee post. I do a lot of coffee posts.
That's so
But,
funny. I'm praying for deliverance.
Thanks, man. I need that. But
That's so
the
funny.
reality is,
That's a hoot.
vengeance is God's, right?
Yes.
Revenge doesn't belong to us. And how many of us go through our life, go through our days with a vengeful heart? Well, so-and-so did this to me, so I'm going to do this to them. Well, so-and-so said this about me, so I'm going to say this about them. Well, you know, so-and-so really blasted me, and I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have. And we're consumed with being vengeful to the things that are said or the things that are done to us in our lives. What does Scripture say? Scripture says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, right?
Yes.
So if it belongs to God, when we try to take the authority of it, when we try to take the authority of the revenge and of the vengeance, we're now taking God's role into our life, and ultimately we're making ourselves an enemy to God.
Wow.
Because God is saying, no, this belongs to me. I will redeem you. I will restore you. I will uphold you. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we're talking nasty. We're thinking evil thoughts. We're just grumpy and angry and whiny all the time, and living from a really angry, bitter place.
Right.
And there's no spiritual blessing in those places,
right?
But we're living from that angry, bitter place, you know, because we should say this, we should think this, it should be my way, it should be our way, it should be how I think, and all of these things and everything else. And God's like, whoa, you're making yourself an enemy to who I am and to what I am and
Wow,
to
that's
who
good.
I want you to be. So when we start talking about spiritual blessings in heavenly places, we need to talk about redemption and the fact that there is spiritual redemption for the lives who trust in God and believe in God and allow God to handle the things that God is supposed to handle.
Wow, yeah.
Don't try to handle those things ourselves. Don't make ourselves an enemy to God. And I preached it out of Genesis chapter 50, and I know we're getting near the end of time, so I won't do that. But Genesis chapter 50, verses 15 down through 21, where basically there's this moment where Joseph had been thrown in a pit, and he had gone through a life of pits, basically, if you will. And making a long story short, he's now at the end of this journey and at the end of this saga that was meant for his bad.
Right.
But God worked it together for good, not only for him,
yes.
but for the nation of Israel.
That's so good.
Right? So if Joseph had not operated as God intended, if Joseph, every time they asked him to come interpret the Pharaoh's dream, right? Joseph had this staunchy attitude of, I'm not interpreting no dream. He would have never found favor.
Right.
He would have been an angry, bitter, remorseful human being that God would have had to say, well, you know what? I can't use him. So let me find someone else to redeem Israel. Right? Because if not, they're going to starve to death. If not, they're going to die. So I can't use Joseph because Joseph's being a jerk.
Right.
You know, Joseph's consumed with his brothers. Joseph's consumed with being thrown in the pit. Joseph's whining about his coat of many collars. and everything else when I'm getting ready to give him a whole lot more than he ever dreamed of having. Joseph forgot the dreams I gave him and what I intend for his life because he's more worried about revenge. He's more worried about getting the last word. He's more worried about being in control and being in charge of what other people do instead of just letting me handle it. Instead of just letting me be God.
Wow.
He's trying to take all of this on. And so ultimately he's become my enemy. But Joseph didn't respond that way, did he?
No.
Joseph said, I've been promised all of this. My life has been given this. I've been taught this way, right? What's the Bible say? Raise your children according to the word of God, and they won't depart from it.
Right.
Right? Man, there's not a lot of that going on right now. Right?
Right.
And we need, as a church, we need to get better at it. As parents, we need to get better at it. And we need to rear our kids according to the whole word of God, not cherry-picked word of God. Amen? Because then you're just creating confusion. And confusion is not of the Lord. But truly the whole word of God, and allow it to envelope them and move them into the path God has created for them. And by doing so, we come into the place where God redeems
Right.
and restores and brings redemption to our lives. Right? Yes. That is exactly what God did with Joseph. God brought Joseph and his family to a place of redemption for both of them. All of it was redeemed, right, by one guy who had the biggest bone to pick, choosing to be faithful to the end.
Yes.
And when his dad had died, and he was facing his brothers, and his brothers talked among themselves and say, surely Joseph will punish us. Surely Joseph will give us what we deserve. They're already carrying the guilt.
Right.
That angry, ugly person that you want revenge and can't sleep at night because you're so consumed by anger and all of these things of the devil.
Yes.
Right? Because those are
Sure,
things of the
absolutely.
devil. Those aren't things of God.
Right.
Right? That person who did all of this to you, that guilt and that shame is already upon them. All you're doing is bringing it upon yourself.
Right.
Which God never intended for you.
That's true.
Right? Because God wanted to redeem you in it. And so forth. So in all of this, and here's what I do want to read this. Here's how Joseph responds to them. I forgot my glasses today, so work with me.
Let me hold it
He
out.
said, he said, so they sent messengers to Joseph saying, before your father died, he commanded, saying, thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespass of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now, please forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of your father. Right? So they're pleading with Joseph. Right? They came together, they put this thing together, and they're now pleading with Joseph, have mercy on us. Don't punish us. Don't kill us. Don't do everything. Because, the protection of a father, they thought was gone. But instead, the protection of the Father is always there when we walk in his presence and do things according to his will. Right? Here's how Joseph responded. Joseph wept when they spoke to him.
Wow.
Because they acknowledged that what they did was wrong.
Right.
They asked for forgiveness. And Joseph wept. Listen, if you give somebody the what for, even if they deserve it, and you think you're going to get an apology, you're fooling yourself.
Wow.
You're fooling no one but yourself. All you're doing is creating enmity with that person as well as God.
Yes.
Right? And there's no forgiveness in that. All right? So here's what he says. Then his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, behold, we are your servants. And this is what Joseph said, and I think this is what God says to us. This is divine redemption. This is spiritual redemption promised to all of us through this example of Joseph. Joseph said to them, do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God? He nails it right there. Am I in the place of God? Am I God? Am I God who can judge you? But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Romans 8 promises that God will work all things all things, even those ugly people, even those ugly moments, even those hurtful times. God will work all things for good to them who love him. Who loves him? Those who keep his commandments, those who follow his word, those who do the things that he has laid down in the whole of God's word for them. Right? Yeah. So here we're in this place where Joseph is bringing all of that to fruition for us to minister, for us to receive and minister. He says, but God meant it for good in order to bring it about as it is this day to save many people alive. Now, therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. This is how we're meant to live.
Wow.
So if we have a plan for 2021, let it be a plan of redemption. Let us live out spiritual redemption in our lives. Let us not look to get the last word. Let us not look to prove our point. Let us not look to give the what-fors. Let us not look to live in anger and bitterness. Mm-hmm. But let us look to live in love and redemption and restoration, comforting those that need it most. Which I think goes right along with what you were saying about, being the hands and feet of Jesus and being the church that we're supposed to be. So that's what we covered this last Sunday in 2021, the plan. So I would just encourage everyone to pursue redemption.
Here's my notes from today. Yeah. So here's some things that I wrote down.
Sorry, I got kind of carried away.
No, you're good. We hinder our blessings because of our attitude.
100%.
And can you imagine the blessings that we have missed out on?
Squandered.
Yeah, because of that. And then here's something else that I wrote down. Sometimes forgiveness is one way. It's by me forgiving that person, but you may never. I could not tell you in 31 years of ministry, I could probably count on my hand that somebody called you and apologized. Mm-hmm. Sometimes forgiveness is one way. Yeah. It's just you forgiving them. Yeah. And them holding that misery. Now, can you imagine can you imagine holding on to such resentment? And people,
it makes you miserable.
Yeah. And they
live a miserable life that way.
Because, resentment is when you take the poison and you hope it kills the other person.
Right. Yeah.
And so,
it kills you along the way.
Yeah. And so when you think about this, so, if you're one that's watching today or listening today or maybe later, here's the thought, are you carrying such resentment? And, and we never want to discredit that bad things happen to good people. They do. And, there's fathers that have molested children that people are still carrying that. And, and we can't say, get over it.
Right.
We don't want to say that, because we want you to know that God is a God of love. And we're sorry for that happened to you in your life. You may have went through a divorce and you're still dealing with that, or the death of I heard of a fella that walked away from Jesus because his mom died. And I'm thinking, wow, that just really shocked me. And I thought, people are going through things just like you said earlier.
Yeah.
But God is a God of redemption.
Yes.
God is a God of forgiveness.
Spiritual redemption. I mean, if you look at the whole story of Joseph, and we didn't have time to really dig into different points
story
in it, but if we dig into that story and we see how it started and we see how it ended, which I just shared the ending with you.
Sure.
That's a spiritual work all things to good.
Yes.
To them that love God. That is a spiritual promise. That is a spiritual redemption. And not only did he redeem Joseph, not only did he redeem Joseph's family, but he redeemed a nation.
Yes.
Through that example.
Right.
And so sometimes we get so angry and we get so bitter. And we get so hurt, and I'm not taking your hurt away. There's toxic people who do toxic things and hurt you. But don't let it make you toxic too.
Talk to them.
Don't let it make it toxic make you toxic too. Don't let it make you bitter too. Don't let it make you hard to handle and hard to deal with too. Instead, let God work it for your good. Trust God to work it for your good. Continue to love people. Continue to lift people up. Continue to share the gospel. Continue to walk in spiritual joy. Continue to walk in God's deliverance in all of your situations. And ultimately, God will redeem that moment.
Yes.
He will bring it all together for good if you let Him. Or you can step into it and mess it up even further. Make it even harder to get over. Make it even more hurtful. Make it even more harmful to you, to your family, to those around you. What if Joseph had messed all of this up? And what if God had said, okay, well, because of that, I'm just going to let your family starve to death? Instead, God worked it all together for good. And I want you to know, no matter where you're at, and John named a lot of things, and some people go through some really horrible, horrible things, right? God will work it together for good if you stay true to loving Him and stay true to His commandments and stay true to the path that He has given you for life. How? I don't know. I don't know how He can turn some of the things to good that are going on in your life right now. But I know He promised that He would. And I know He's sovereign and able to do just that. And so wherever you are, whatever you're going through, turn to Him. Don't turn to the angry and the bitterness and the maliciousness of this life, because it will just consume you, and you will lack worth in the kingdom if you do. Don't make yourself an enemy of God, but instead be a friend of God. Walk with Him, learn from Him, allow the whole Word of God to consume you and overcome your feelings and your thoughts and your words, and let God do a great work in your life. I believe He can. I don't believe there's any story that's beyond His redemption. I don't believe there's any circumstance that's beyond what you can do when you take God's hand. Let's pray. Father, we're thankful that You are a God of redemption. And God, I messed up so much. So many times, Lord, trying to disqualify myself from what You were calling me for. I made horrible decisions. I did evil things. I just did so much, Lord, that was not pleasing to You. But even in those moments and even in those times, You never forsook me. And You never took Your eye off of me. And when I turned from those ways and I looked back to You, You came running to me. And God, You grabbed hold and You redeemed and restored my life. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that in spite of my story, in spite of what others might hold against me, in spite of the horrible ways that I lived, God, You always saw hope, and You always saw deliverance, and You always saw spiritual blessings and joy in my life. And God, You've given me far more than I could ever give gratitude for. And I worship You and I praise You. And I do my best to serve You every day. And I'm thankful that You've worked all of those things together for good. God, You brought me to a place where I'm present with You, to where I hear You, to where I walk with You, to where I trust You and I believe in You, even in the dark times. And Father, I know there are those out there who will listen to this, listen to it live or listen to it in the days to come, who might be at this place and be thinking to themselves, even me? You did it for him, Lord, but even me? God, I ask You to put Your arms around that person right now. As they hear me pray, Lord, I pray you put Your arms around them. And God, You whisper into their ear, yes, even You. And God, You deliver them from those things. And You redeem them from their story. And God, You set joy upon their heart. And You lift them above the things of this life, as only You can. because you said yes, even me, to a woman at a well. You said yes, even me, to an adulteress in the street. You said yes, even me, to a thief on a cross. And you work their stories to good. And so, Lord, I pray that you work the stories to good for whosoever would listen to us today, and let these words touch their heart. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for watching today. Jay, it's so awesome for you to be here. I just get fed so much out of you.
God is good.
If I wasn't busy in Gasway, I'd be down here sitting under you.
God is good.
But God is faithful, man.
He
I
is.
tell you.
Yes, He is.
You know, if you have a prayer request, you can instant message us at any time, and we will pray. We've got a prayer list going. Probably what I'm going to do this afternoon or just later on in this morning is I'm going to go back live and just pray for people.
Wonderful.
Just in a little bit, but God's faithful, and we encourage you to share the broadcast and share it on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, as well as Facebook and YouTube. And if you're, what's the age tonight?
Middle school and high school.
Middle school and high school tonight.
If you are 6th grade through 12th grade, and if you have graduated high school and are still 18, you're able to come. But if you're beyond 18, we're working on something for that age group. But
cool.
But this is not it. But we are working on something for that.
That is so awesome. Well, Jay will be back next week, and John Sandy, weather permitting, will be here in the morning, and we're just really excited about the awesome opportunities to be able to share Jesus with you. Thank you for watching the Pulse WV Live this morning, and we will see you again tomorrow. God bless you.